በትምህርት ከፍ ብሎ መብረር ይቻላል። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ከከፍተኛ ትምህርት አግባብነትና ጥራት ኤጀንሲ ሙሉ ዕውቅናን ባገኘንባቸው በማስተርስ ዲግሪ ኤምቢኤ በስትራቴጂክ ማኔጅመንት፣ ኤምቢኤ በባንኪንግ እና ፋይናንስ፣ ኤምቢኤ በቢዝነስ ሊደርሺፕ፣ ኤምቢኤ በሪስክና ኢንሹራንስ፣ ኤምኤስሲ በኢንተርናሽናል ትሬድ እና ኢኮኖሚክስ ዘርፎች በእውቀት ለመቅረጽ የበቁ ፕሮፌሰሮቻችን አረንጓዴ መብራታቸውን አብርተዋል። በነገራችን ላይ በኬንያ ሀገር ከሚገኙ ስመጥር ዩኒቨርሲቲዎች በሚመጡ ፕሮፌሰሮች የትኩረት መስክ ትምህርቶቹ መሰጠታቸው ልዩ ያደርገናል። በምርጥ የትምህርት ስርዓት የተገነባው ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ በመጀመሪያ ዲግሪ በአቪዬሽን ማኔጅመንት፣ በሆቴል ማኔጅመንት፣ በአካውንቲንግና ፋይናንስ፣ በማርኬቲንግ ማኔጅመንት አስተማማኝ ትምህርት ይገቢውና ራስዎንና ሀገሮን ይለውጡ። አድራሻ 22 አደባባይ ወደ ሾላ በሚወስደው መንገድ ላይ። ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።
This is our we lesson 9 and 10. I think now we have gone through the case studies. Somebody asked the other time that looks like most of the case study we found were from Brazil, but it doesn't mean that that's the only case. I think maybe in the next couple of this month, this lecture, we'll look for case study from other parts of the world in corporate governance. So if you are given a case study from Ethiopia, which you think we can look at in the class, just send me an email and then I can look at it and see if it's good. I'm sure there's lots of other studies that you can get from Ethiopia. So any of you, if you come across a good case study from Ethiopia, please just share it with me. Then I can look at it and maybe see how to formulate questions and then share it with everybody, and then we form part of the class discussion. Now, for today's lecture, I just want to look at ethics and corporate social responsibility, which again is very critical in terms of corporate governance, right? And we have already studied ethics, and basically what we are saying is that we need to have the right way to do business, you know. That's about ethics, you know. We need to do things in the right way. We need to follow certain protocols when doing business. And that's basically what ethics is all about. So it's the right way to run a business, right? And that then entails in all aspects of corporate governance, right? And that's basically what our interest is going to be. So some of the things that, again, we learn is that for companies to be said to be ethical and practicing corporate social responsibility, there are certain things that we need to see. I think in one of my assignments when I was teaching leadership and ethics, I think I gave one class issues to do with look at companies and see. I think it was for everybody. You are to look at companies and see what they're doing in terms of CSR, you know. And what we realized is that many multinationals globally, in Kenya, in Ethiopia as well, I think are involved in a lot of CSR. And we have seen many of them maybe sponsoring events, athletes, football, or building hospitals, or putting up classes, schools, or putting up things like that. So that's basically part of making the stakeholders feel that they are part of them. And that's one of the essence of corporate social responsibility. Even though in some quarters, some people have argued that CSR is basically like buying, you know, it's like you're trying to buy, you know, you're trying to use money to buy clients, you know, it's like a bribe. So there's a lot of debate on that. There are people who feel that the company is just giving back to the people what is rightfully theirs. But there are others who also feel that it's a way of making every stakeholder feel that they belong. So it's important that companies clarify the standards of ethical behavior that is required of the board and the senior executives and all employees, and then to encourage observance of those standards. I think that's very critical. And these standards, I think what we realize is normally missing is enforcement. Because we have a lot of things that are written in paper, very nice things that are printed and kept, but then sometimes the problem is enforcement. So it's important that these ethical standards and whatever company has in plan are practiced and are enforced, right? So it's important that we comply with their legal obligations and have regard for reasonable expectations of shareholders. So it's also important that companies publish their policy concerning diversity or summary of that policy. So again, these things should be made public, right? You should ensure that your policies on corporate governance, your policies on ethics, your policies on CSR are public, you know, so that it is known that possibly this is what you support. Maybe it's known that you support disadvantaged children. Maybe it's known that you support higher education. Maybe it's known that you support women and children. Or maybe it's known that you support disabled, you know. So this, your corporate social responsibility should be planned and it should be documented so that it is known. It's not just something you're going to do haphazardly. So I think that's also something that we should be very clear on. Now, there's also then what we call the ethics of governance, right? And that requires that all decisions and actions of the board and executive management are based on some of these principles. The first one is responsibility. You know, you want the board to be responsible. Responsibility means that you make decisions and you stand by them, you know, so that if it goes wrong, you take responsibility. You are able to explain what happened, right? That's what means being responsible and being accountable. So we expect the board to be also accountable, you know, able to justify the decisions they take, you know, at every point in the organization. The third thing is we expect fairness. So remember, I've talked about responsibility, accountability, fairness, and transparency. These four are very critical. These four are what then we call the ethics of governance. And we expect that every board and executive management be built on these four tenets, you know. Fairness in terms of when you're considering maybe disciplinary cases, when you're considering promotions, when you're considering award of tenders, you know. Transparency in the same way. I've just explained that if you're in a board and you always have to declare if there is conflict of interest, you know. You're not going to sit in an interview if it is maybe your brother or your relative who is going to be interviewed. You're not going to sit in a tender committee if the company that is bidding is yours or is your relatives. So those are things that are critical if the board is to be ethical. So these four are very important. I've said accountability, responsibility, fairness, and transparency, right? Because in transparency, what we are saying is that the board should disclose information in a manner that enables stakeholders to make an informed analysis of the company's performance. Realize that some of the problems that we have had with boards of companies that have failed is that sometimes you have maybe the board or the CEOs falsifying information, or they give the wrong information to shareholders. Shareholders may think the company is doing very well when ideally they know that things are not good. So information should be made public and everybody should be aware of what is happening. Right. So again, in addition to the four that I've mentioned, we also expect some of these five, which we are calling moral duties, right, of the directors and the management of the company. Number one is conscious, right? Conscious, we are saying a director should act with intellectual honesty in the best interest of the company. So it basically means that when doing something, you should have some conscience. You should know that whatever you are doing is for the best interest of the company. And you should not make a decision that is going to jeopardize the performance of the company, right? And that is why, as I said in our last lecture, we said when you're looking for directors, you're looking for people with certain skills who are going to fill certain gaps in the organization. We are looking for people with some certain experience, you know, so that we don't just put somebody on the board, possibly because maybe he comes from that area or is wealthy enough. We need to look for people who will bring a positive contribution to the board, right? And that is when they can act with consciousness, because if you have no experience in a certain area, then you may not be have the, in back at your mind, you may not know whether you're making the right decision. Then the other thing is about care. And again, I say the director should devote serious attention to the affairs of the company, right? So sometimes you've seen directors who are just there so that they benefit from the company, maybe allowances or some of the good things that they can be made available to them, but they really don't care about what happens in the company. And I think if you have good shareholders, then those are the kind of directors to kick off from your institution. There's competence, right? And this one I've stressed more and more again. They need to have the directors with the right knowledge and skills and who are committed to the organization, right? Commitment and care is almost equal things, right? I've seen sometimes where you have directors whose, as I said, their interest is mainly, they use the company to employ maybe their relatives, or their only interest is the allowance that they're getting from that company, but they're really not, they don't care, they're not committed. So I think such people are not supposed to be there. The only problem we have, I don't know, and I'm sure it must be also in Ethiopia, is that a lot of these appointments, especially in public institutions and parastatals, are political. And most of the time they're made by the government of the day. And most of the time is on about whom you know or how well connected you are. So sometimes you'll find individuals elected in this board do not have the right knowledge, do not care, do not have competence, are not committed, you know. So in such cases, then we see that happening. And then courage, yeah. So they should have the courage to make decisions and to take risks. Remember, you can only have the courage when you have information. Again, without proper information, it's impossible to exercise the kind of courage here that we are talking about. Now, there's also the issue of what we are calling corporate citizenship, right? And I said it's concerned with the contribution a company makes through its social and environmental impact, as well as economic contribution. Now, this is where CSR comes in corporate citizenship. What contributions are you making to the society and to the environment, you know? Are you involved in, let's say, environmental issue, planting trees, right? Are you involved in maybe clearing up rivers so that they don't block up? Are you involved in maybe helping the locals there improve their agriculture or distribute seeds or things like that? That's very important for, in fact, many companies have a department or a directorate for corporate social responsibility, which is very critical because this is the only way you are able to bring all your stakeholders on board, especially stakeholders to do with individuals that relate to the company. So this is important. So some of the impacts and contributions that we need in terms of corporate citizenship would be one, managing the enterprise. So again, how effectively and ethically the company governs, controls, and manages its operations. Issues of workplace practices. How well do you take care of your employees, you know? I know there are instances, those of you who have manufacturing background, I'm sure some of you come from, well, good establishment, but we have instances, and I can quote maybe local cases here, especially in the flower farms or some of these manufacturing farms that are located in the industrial area, where you find people are working without protective clothing, without gloves, without maybe even face masks, and they're exposed to a lot of risks, that basically, so workplace practices and ensuring that there is safety at work is part of corporate citizenship in the organization. So that's something that should be taken very seriously. We normally have these things called OSHA, yeah? Occupational safety and health. It's very critical and has to be observed. Whether you are in the hospitality industry, it's important, or manufacturing industry, it's very, very critical. And sometimes you have organizations that do not look at this. And again, that's why I said, then we have, ideally, we need to have lobby groups that then fight for the right of workers to ensure that companies are made to observe corporate citizenship, which is very critical. Right now, of course, with COVID-19, there are issues of workplace social distancing. So we expect that organizations should ensure that possibly the offices are fumigated, are disinfected, employees possibly are given face masks and things like that. That's basically part of what we call corporate citizenship. Now, there's also the issue of stakeholder interaction, how it engages external stakeholders in the company supply chain. It is expected, good practice, that when you are making procurement, you should start with the people around, give them first priority. If it's not there is when we can then move outside, right? And look at issues of the environment and issues of transformation. So I think what I've tried to look at here are some of the other 5 very critical issues of corporate citizenship. How the company manages the enterprise, how they manage the workplace, stakeholder interaction, how it deals with the environment, and issues of transformation. Now, maybe I just want to pause a bit so that I involve you in the discussion. Let's just now try to see how issues of ethics and governance and corporate citizenship based on the Ethiopian context. I've given you examples of companies I know locally here in Kenya, and I've given you examples of mostly in the flower farms and some manufacturing enterprises owned by locals and even foreigners, whereby there's a lot of, if I would call it, mistreatment of the workers. They're not given occupational health and safety standards are very poor. For example, I say things like gloves and all those kinds of things. Now, so let me just pause a bit so that I just get to hear from you whether such issues you could exist also in the Ethiopian perspective, where you have companies that have issues in terms of ethical governance and in terms of corporate citizenship, and what you think, in your opinion, can be done. Anybody who wants to give a hand to that? Are there? Yeah,
okay,
go ahead.
Doctor, can I say something? I'm Kirubel.
Yeah, Kirubel, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for your good question and also classification regarding the section. But what I would like to say something regarding ethics of governance is in our country. While I am hearing you, I am very thinking about what I was really very sorry what different organizations are doing. Look, we are expecting more from different organizations to get different benefits from the society because they are having benefits. They have developing their organizations. They are collecting profits from that environment, from the people also. But so because of this, we are expecting more benefits in order to complete or in order to take their social responsibilities. But in opposite, different organization in our country, in Ethiopia, they are harmed their environments people by different things. For example, by removal different poisons from different factories. Because of that poisons, removal of that poisons, a lot of peoples are creating or having disabled childs, and even different peoples lost their legs, their eyes, even in different area. So the organizations in Ethiopia or in undeveloped countries are not good in ethics. They have in social responsibilities. They are not good in taking responsible and regarding their environment. They are disturbing the good environment, even if they are harmed their environment. So regarding this, I am very really sorry with different organization around in Ethiopia.
Yeah, I think Kirubel, you're right. And it's not only Ethiopia. I said it's even here in this country, in Kenya as well. And I think you have said many developing countries. I give the example of I gave the example of the flower industry. And that is why sometimes then you have lobby groups, and we have normally what is called what is it called? Where you want to track, when you look at the supply chain, maybe you want to track back how this product came. Let's say you have in this country we sell most of our flowers to Europe. It goes to the supermarkets in the UK, in Germany, in wherever. So often what you have is that the consumers at the other end are the ones who lobby and say that if we want to know where this flower is coming from, we want to know how it was grown, we want to know how the people who grow it were treated, so that if it was grown through child labor or through people who are not properly compensated or mistreated, then they decline, then they decline to buy. And so once they put that, then it forces a lot of these companies that are then involved to become ethical and to practice some of these. We have had instances, just like you say, where companies, their effluent, toxic, maybe full of chemicals, end up into the river. And when it gets into the river, then somebody downstream is using the same river to irrigate, let's say, tomatoes or cabbages. And these are the same that is then sold in the nearest market or supermarket. And so you end up with people getting infected with chemical poisoning from some of these, through when you look at the whole chain. And sometimes they do it not because they don't know, but because maybe they don't care, which is very sad. So those are issues that I think we have seen even locally here. And for this country, we have an organization called NEMA, National Environmental Management Authority, which is mandated by government to ensure that companies, before you can put up your company, they do for you environmental impact assessment, and they are often looking at those issues about your effluent and the rest. But you see, sometimes I think the problem is with capacity, and the problem is if the company has just ill intention, then you'll find that they'll just go ahead. Maybe it's then people will complain, then the government comes in, and then they shut down the company. So I think the same problems are also experienced in this country, which are really issues of ethics and poor governance. That's a good one, Kirubel. Anybody else who wants to share with us maybe issues of when you talk of corporate citizenship and ethics that are a problem, maybe from an Ethiopian perspective? Sometimes before you look at other countries, you might think that you are the only ones who have problems. But now when you open up, you realize these problems are actually spread almost in many other countries. Right, somebody else wants to give a contribution? Kirubel, you are in the hospitality industry, I guess is it?
Yeah.
Are you in the hospitality industry?
No. Yeah, I am a banker, I think.
Oh, you're a banker?
I'm working on bank, yeah.
Okay, good, all right. Who wants to give us another example?
Can I say something, Doctor?
Yes, go ahead, Alemayo.
You know, in Ethiopia, almost most of the industries were disposing their waste into the nearby rivers, basically. Now the rivers becomes dead and polluted. Down in the downstream, people are using the water for drinking, for vegetation, and for drinking for their cattle and for washing of clothes and other things. So that results in damaging the society and killing their animals. But nowadays, the Ethiopian government has established an environmental protection authority. That authority, as you said, now the current new investment should do an environmental and social impact assessment and should present the environmental and social management plan. And the authority is expected to control the implementation of the management plan properly. But there is a limitation of knowledge and staff members in the authority, and they are not enforcing the law properly. Currently, the basic problem is the enforcement problem. And also, there are sectoral associations. For example, in the leather industry, food and beverage industry, for the health, the medicinal industries, there are sectoral associations that approve the standard,
I've lost you. Lemayu, I've lost you. Is it me who has lost you? Are you hearing him?
No.
Okay. So I thought I'm the only one. No. Maybe his internet has just, okay. Maybe his internet?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. But when he comes back, but I think he was making a very good point. He was saying the problem is enforcement. And again, you were saying, just like I was saying in Kenya, we have what is called National Environmental Management Authority. He said that Ethiopia now has environmental, EPA, there's an authority, I think I can't get the name, but then companies must be able to give the environmental and social impact a plan and assessment, which I think basically makes it right. And I think he was ending up when he was saying that this is normally sectoral.
So sorry, Doctor, it was interrupted due to the connection.
Yeah, so just continue. I was just trying to sum up what you're saying. Yeah, just continue. You are talking about enforcement, and you are talking about
who is speaking?
Sectoral. Yeah, continue.
Okay, so the currently the sectoral associations and the sectoral offices have the power to implement the law, and they are the one who approved the trading license. So they will not give the trading license unless the company fulfills this requirement, and they inspect the factory periodically. So currently it is in a better condition, not like the previous one. Previously it was worse, and there is a much complaint on the flour industry now. In the flour industry,
even in Ethiopia.
Yeah, even in Ethiopia, in the flour industry, there is a lot of complaint, and people are complaining. Even the employees, some of the employees are becoming handicapped. Their hands and their face is damaged by the chemicals. There is a lot of complaint there, and also the people around the flour industry are complaining from the sewage. It is the pesticide the
Yes.
insecticide, the weedicide, and the
Yeah.
chemicals to preserve the flowers for a longer time are draining to the surrounding, and they are complaining also that there is a big complaint.
Yeah.
In regard to when we come to the companies,
Yeah.
their citizenship is not
Mhm.
as expected, because they thought that by giving some donation for the locals, they are executing their social responsibility. But that
Yeah.
is not the basic idea of social responsibility. The first thing in the social responsibility is to keep the environment safe and habitable. And we don't have to damage the future for the expense. We are not generating money by the expense of the future generation. They are doing like that. So we have to go a lot to secure the corporate citizenship and to introduce the ethical governance. And also, when it comes to the safety gadgets, the PPE in the industries,
Yeah.
it is not yet completed. And even due to the lack of market, you can't find the proper PPE in the market also, because the traders doesn't have a market, so they are not bringing the PPE gadgets to the market. We have a
Yeah.
problem also in that. So we have a lot of problem. We are a beginner in general. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those sentiments, imagine, they're not only for unique to Ethiopia. As I said, the flower industry in this country also has had that such problem. And I
Yeah.
think the critical thing is now the government to enforce and ensure that maybe there's a constant check on what is coming from the factories to the rivers around there. And there's a constant check on how they are treating the environment. I think I like the way you have said that some companies think that just by giving some donations to the people around, that's enough in terms of corporate social responsibility. And that's why I said earlier that there's a way some companies take it that if they, if they can give some donations to people around, then that's corporate social responsibility. Ideally, that basically does not really fit in what corporate social responsibility is, because your first and foremost work is to ensure that the people are living in an environment that is habitable. You look at issues of environmental conservation, you look at issues of people's own safety first. But you see, what you'll be doing is like you're buying their allegiance, you're giving them money or some donations to buy their support, where on the other hand, you're actually harming the environment. So I think if you have a good board that is keen on looking at issues of ethical governance and corporate citizenship, then they should be looking beyond even their own lifetime and looking at what happens to their children and their grandchildren, what kind of environment or what kind of planet are they leaving behind. So I guess those are some of the questions that we need to ask ourselves. And that takes us to really, when you're talking about, you see, corporate social responsibility would involve certain investments. And that's why now we talk of socially responsible investment, if you're planting trees, that's an investment. If you're putting up hospitals, that's an investment. If you are involved in foundations to support education, those are investments. Or to support disabled, so that's investment. And that is why then we look at this. So that's why I say in recent years there has been an increasing awareness world over of socially responsible investment, or what is generally called corporate social responsibility. So indeed, corporate social responsibility is an aspect of socially responsible investment, just like the reasons I've given you. And you can see it covers a wide area, which include generic engineering, environment, employment conditions, human rights, all these kinds of things. And I've said that sometimes it takes, let's say, the human rights groups or lobby groups to force organizations to be socially responsible, you know. A lot of these have also been seen in the mining sector. The mining sector, even in this country and other countries where there's been a lot of maybe people going down underground are not given enough protective wear. And sometimes you find that where these mines are, the fumes that comes out, the dust that comes out, spreads over a wide radius and affects the people living around there. This has been observed. So again, those are issues that needs to be looked at. And there are many other cases that maybe we may just have to cite later. So organizations faced a number of pressure from different directions to be socially responsible. I think this is what we can look at. Government requirements. Alemayo has given us the case of Ethiopia, where now the government has set up a body, I'm sure by the Act of Parliament, to ensure that organizations or individuals are made to give out, first of all, before even you establish that company, to ensure that environmental and social impact assessment is done. I've given the example of here in Kenya, what we call of environmental impact assessment also has to be done even before you put up a building, so that we want to see how that building help in protecting the environment. How will you deal with your effluents? How will you deal with any toxic substances that comes out from your place? Stakeholder expectation, and again, this is critical. Stakeholders, your customers, you know, the people, the community where you are located. There's also what they expect from you, and there's that push for them. You cannot put up your facility somewhere and you're not putting up nice roads that are leading up there. You cannot put up your facility and you're not bringing electricity and you're not bringing water, you know. Some of these are things that then you'll have to ensure you bring and the people around benefit. So the stakeholders, I'm saying if maybe you are operating a mine or a quarry, the stakeholders around would expect that you have a way of ensuring that the fume that comes out of your factory is not poisonous, does not affect them negatively, you know. Reputational risk. So as an organization, you have a reputation that you want to protect, right? And that alone can help you, can make you also be socially responsible. You see, you don't want, there was this case where I think Shell, something happened and a lot of spillage of oil on Atlantic Ocean. You know, that just simple act spreads like bushfire and spoils the reputation of the company. And I think we have had several other incidents where something small happens and it can trigger a whole lot of reactions that ends up spoiling the reputation of the company. Remember, those of you who are marketers or have done marketing, you know about brand and image. And if something very small happens, you know, a small thing and a bad thing spreads much faster. And that can help really damage your reputation, which you want to protect at all costs. So that has to be looked at very keenly. Now, so as I said, so these are key things that you have to look at. Who puts pressure, right? And remember, I've said globally, we also have lobby groups, we have Human Rights Watch, we have Consumer Watch that then also put pressure on organizations to be socially responsible, right? Now, so what is the significance of corporate social responsibility? Now, the emphasis, businesses, particularly large ones, are subject to increasing expectation that will exercise corporate social responsibility. Good governance codes emphasizes on number one, economic responsibilities, you know. So basically what we are saying is that with good corporate social responsibility, then basically it means you're also ensuring that there's soundness in your economic responsibilities, in the fact that, you know, many organizations, as I said, there's what we call the triple bottom line, you know. You're looking at, are you getting the benefits socially, financially, and environmentally. Many organizations just look at the financial benefits, you know, they're not looking at environmental and social benefits. So I guess that's also very critical. Legal responsibilities is also an emphasis if you are corporate, because remember we've said of these companies that throw toxic substances into the rivers or things like that. Again, ethical responsibility. You are ethically mandated to ensure that you do the right thing. And again, that becomes part of the why corporate becomes significant. Now, what are some of the strategies of socially responsible investment? Basically, what we are saying CSR. So number one is engagement, right? So that means you identify areas for improvement in ethical, social, and environmental companies. So you as an organization, remember I said that you don't just wake up and say, you know, this has to be planned. Organizations have to plan for where they're going to invest socially, right? And this has to be part of their policy so that it's known that organization X, Y, and Z, in their budget, there is this millions of shillings that is put aside to, let's say, protect the environment, or put aside to support maybe needy children, or to support women, or to support SMEs, you know. So it has to be budgeted and it has to be planned. And that's why we talk of engagement, right? So you have to, this approach identifies areas for improvement in ethical, social, and environmental policies of the company invested in, and encourage them to make improvements, right? So again, preferences, the fund managers work to a list of guidelines. So again, this has to be informed by what exactly is your preference, you know. There could be many areas that you want to involve in, but what's your preference? Again, there has to be screening, you know. You could be having several options. So among all these options, we may have to screen to find out which one basically fits with our motto, which one fits with our vision, you know, and things like that. So generally then, as I said, it's important for organizations to practice good corporate citizenship and good corporate governance. You know, at the end of the day, it builds your brand. You know, many of us know Coca-Cola, not just because of the drink, but because you find Coca-Cola supporting maybe football, several, if you go to almost every stadium, you'll find Coca-Cola signs there. They're supporting a lot of sports activities, supporting education. So besides that, that helps strengthen the brand image of Coca-Cola. And I'm sure many other companies do the same. So this could be some of the arguments for practicing corporate social responsibility. Another reason for companies to show is that the businesses are not, then the government will create new regulation and establish fines against corporations, you see. So again, the government coming in as a watchdog. If you're not being socially responsible, then there are fines. In fact, at the extremes, we have had governments even closing some businesses which are not socially responsible. So I think those are some things that we need to, again, as I said, it can be a way of the company to build a positive public relations and attract top talent in the industry. You know, if everybody knows that your organization is an organization that is socially responsible, you know, and you build your brand up there, so you find many people want to associate with you, and that basically is important. Now, let's look again now at some of the arguments against, you know, we have seen that there are arguments for corporate social responsibility, and most of those are as a result, you're building a brand image, you're going to attract good talent, you're going to ensure that you are in harmony with your stakeholders, you don't risk the government closing your company down, you know. But then again, what can be some of the arguments against CSR, right? So one of the things we're saying is that skeptics often claim that businesses should focus on profit Now, there are people who say that the purpose of a business is to focus on profit and leave issues of social and environment to the government and non-profit organization. That's an argument, you know. There are people who do think like that. Basically, yes, that's their thinking, but in my opinion, I would still think that organizations, you don't need to leave everything to the government. So long as you are reaping some profit out of a given area, I think it's important, it's ethical, it's logical for as an organization to be able to give back. What would be the benefit of you reaping billions and billions of dollars, and yet the people around are dying, your products are harming the environment? I think it doesn't, you don't feel nice as a human being if you do that. So even though some people argue that that's not your responsibility, that's the government's or NGO's responsibility, for me, I would think otherwise. Again, there are those who argue that being socially responsible could be damaging a company in the global marketplace. Cleaning up the environment, ensuring product safety, and donating money or time for welfare issues raise company costs. So you can see these also. And that's why I said, yes, it's costly. And those who argue against it say that you are raising the company's operational cost and there's no need for you to do that. So they're saying it's a cost, and they're saying it doesn't make sense, you see. But again, when you look at it, and that's why I said it is budgeted for. Every organization, I think many organizations have a department that deals with corporate social responsibility. And these things, it has to be a budget. You have to know what percentage of maybe your income or your profit goes back to CSR. So in as much as, yes, it's a cost, but I think it's a worthwhile cost that has to be budgeted for so that you give back to the community. Now, how maybe just a small one so that from your case, I listened to some of the CSR from the Ethiopian context. Maybe some of the companies maybe that you work for, and you just share with us some of the undertakings they have had in terms of CSR. Anybody who wants to share with us what his company has done or is doing?
Okay.
Yes, Becca.
Becca, I want to ask
Becca,
some.
yes, go ahead. Yeah.
I've got a question. Before that,
Yeah.
I've got a question on
Yes.
corporate
Yes. Go
social
ahead.
investment.
Yes, go
Corporate
ahead.
social investment. So
Yes.
corporate social investment.
Yes.
If you want to a good
Yes.
governance, good corporate governance, you should have to select good investment. Before thinking about
Yes.
corporate social responsibility, we should have to think about the investment. I want to ask one question. Within
Yes.
the last 10 or 15 years, how about Kenya? Are Kenyan investors invest in hotel or agricultural area? That's my question for Dr. Emmanuel. But in our country, there is a lot of hotels invested. If there is any corruption, most of the time, the hotel are related with the corrupted bankers, and after the hotels are built, the environment of the peoples are affected by prostitution and other sexual abusement, because most of the time that big hotels utilizes by government body who are corrupted, most likely just like that, and investors coming from abroad and tourists, but most of the time the area is likely a prostitutional area. I was watching that. It related with corruption. Maybe somebody can give me a comment. I relate three things. Hotels is service giving, but there is a corruption and there is a corporate social problem will be built after those investment. But if we choose the investment in other areas, maybe we can feed a lot of people better than serving simple and few people who are corrupted or wealthy people. That's my question and comment.
Oh, okay. So you are saying that the fact that most of the investment is in the hotel is leading to
How about in Kenya?
well, it's the same almost, but a lot of the hotel industry mostly, I think, for Kenya is by multinationals and big corporations. But individuals would find many of them would invest in real estate, right? Maybe putting up houses or things like that. And a lot of this possibly is with, as you said, maybe corrupt money that then finds its way into real estate. That's one area that I think is very popular with money that is, it's like what you call money laundering, you know. You're using corrupt money to clean it by putting an investment, you know. And I think a lot of what happens is that most of those investments are in real estate. But of course, it can involve also putting up maybe office blocks or putting up houses, you know, or things like that. So that's also common here. But I think, I don't know, I still don't see how you relating investment in hotel to corporate governance, because you see, once you put up a hotel, depending on the size of the hotel, then you're putting up directors, and then these directors have to ensure that there are ethical practices within the hotel and corporate governance is being practiced. So if things are not right, then of course you go back to the board of directors and the management. But of course, the fact that the hotel has been built with corrupt money, I think this is, you can't tell. As I said, that is part of what they call money laundering, and it happens everywhere, even in this country. But again, I agree with you. Sometimes the type of investment is critical, because that would help maybe many people maybe can benefit out of that investment. So I agree. Maybe I don't know whether there's anybody who wants to contribute on your point. Because your point, I get you started by saying that we have really to be careful on where we put our corporate social investment, because where we put that investment will determine how socially responsible we are. I think that was a good way of putting it, and I totally agree. Is there anybody who wants to maybe add something to Becca's point of view?
Please, Alex, say something.
Yeah. Or any other contribution on CSR? CSR from an Ethiopian perspective?
Let me add something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Biru, yes, go ahead. Biru, you're a banker?
Yeah.
Now I'm
Biru.
working in breweries.
Is Biru a banker?
I
You're a
was
brewer. Yeah,
working in
okay, go ahead.
brewery. I usually to working in brewery. What I want to add in corporate social responsibilities. Before years, you know, as you know, corporate social responsibility is not the mandatory thing when people are investing in any sectors. The government authorities are forced to pay compensation for any investments for the parting what the investors did in the pollution of the air or in the pollution of any activities before they were forced to compensate the environment or the population. But nowadays, the things are become changing. You know, as my observation, it's become an obligation for any investor. It's become serious case now. If especially when you see the ethnics case in Ethiopia, there is a lot of ethnic group in Ethiopia, as you know, more than 80 ethnic groups in Ethiopia. So when you invest in one area, the people that is the residential always checking from which ethnic group this investor is coming from. So at by hook or crook, at any time they may raise a question with the investment, and they ask what this guy is contributing for our areas. Is he solve unemployment, even if the area's people are not educated enough or and fit for the investment? They expect to hire a lot of people from the surrounding, and they expect school. They expect a lot of hospital and other investments in order to be in order to built by that investor. Otherwise, they may become against the company. So the investment nowadays in Ethiopia, it's become difficult, and a lot of investors companies become fired and diminished by the surrounding areas, and a lot of peoples are take off their companies from the surrounding area and take another alternative to build to reconstruct their companies in other countries and other regions also. So it is become nowadays, it's not a question of a government, or it's not a matter of pollution only. It is an obligation that's asking by the surrounding. Before years, the people are not aware about such such kinds of ethnical issues, and they are not raising any question in terms of ethnical ethnical questions, you know. But now nowadays, even the Dangote, you know, Dangote is a Nigerian investor who invests in Ethiopia.
Dangote. Dangote investment in cement. Cement.
Now he's investing in. He was investing in Ethiopia, cement factory, but a lot of his trucks are burning, and a lot of his employees are killed with unknown peoples. The political issue is another case. Peoples are opposing the government by firing the investors' company and other things. That's another issue. On top of that, the ethnic issue also. If you invest something in one area, you should think how you change the minds of that area, not only about the pollution cases, how they are going to accept me, what budget should I assign for this area. This question should be answered. Before you factory, you have to invest on the people that you are going to join, or you are going to be part of the population. So I want to add this thing, the ethnical issue, especially in Ethiopia, it's a mandatory problem in terms of corporate social responsibilities.
I think, thank you. Biru has added a very point that maybe I didn't even think about, the ethical dimension of corporate social responsibility, a very serious one, where possibly you put the investment, and the first question is from which ethnic community. And again, we are saying that we consider the people around first. Again, it's brought in another point. You would find maybe your put, but I would suggest, you know, people don't have all to be in the top position. if they don't suit, maybe they don't have the right education to be in the top, they can still get the lower jobs. At least a way of just ensuring that they feel they're part of the organization. But I think I understand you. The ethical dimension can also be very, I think you're giving me the example of the Dangote, where you're saying that where he's putting up his companies, employees are being killed, and the people around are hostile to them. So yeah, those are very, very difficult issues. And I think I must say, I really, yes, I understand that. So thanks for that, your contribution. And that's looking at it from the Ethiopian context where the ethical dimension comes in very strong. Good. Thank you. Anybody wants to add one more thing before we look at just through some of these activities? The CSR from the, I think I've learned three things. Bekal has said before we look at CSR, we have to look at, as a banker, he says, you have to look where you're going to invest, your corporate social investment. And the investment has to be in such a way that it's going to be, to give more value to the stakeholders. And Biru has added in the dimension, the ethical dimension to corporate social responsibility, where then sometimes you say it's a challenge being socially responsible when there is also the ethical dimension to it. Yeah, so I think those are issues that we have to take care of. Good.
Yeah, can I add something?
Yes, add something. Yeah.
You know, if I start from Baakal's dimension, usually the selection of investment depends on the country's political, economical, and social perspective. When an investor investigates what is the social dimension, most people are focusing on a short return investment, like the hotels and real estate.
Yeah.
They want to invest in a safe place. You see, when they come to the industry and agriculture, the issue of the ethnic politics in picture. But everybody wants to invest in Addis, the capital city, which have the focus of the international community and the others, and in a big cities. But when you think of agriculture, you have to go to the remote, the infrastructure, and the social aspect of the people residing there influences your investment. Naturally, agriculture and industry are long-term investments that expects a return after 5 or 10 years, depending on the type of investment. But in a hotel, you can harvest your investment immediately after the the start of the job. But the industry is not like that. That is the first scenario. Currently,
is that the network pool?
Yeah, I think there's a.
And the law is stringent.
Yeah, it's okay now. I'm here. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you hear me now?
Now I can hear you. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Now you are clear.
Yeah, the network in my place is very bad. That's why.
Oh, yeah. It comes and goes. It comes and goes.
Yeah.
Okay. But at least I think I heard some of the things you said. If I can paraphrase, what Alemai was saying is that most investors look for the quick area where they'll get their money quickly. And that's why many of them go for the hotel and the real estate so that they can get their money quicker. I think he was talking in response to Bekal's point of view that was saying that we need to consider where we are putting our social investment, and it has to be in an area that will promote good corporate citizenship, because he was of the opinion that certain areas of investment. Yeah, you're back?
Yeah, I am back, but it is a frequent interruption. The other thing, the law, you know, in the there is a guideline issued by the government through the Ethiopian Environmental Protection Authority. That guideline has narrated, outlined what to be done and what to be executed by the companies. You know, there should be the analysis of the social and environmental impact created during the construction phase, during the operation phase, and after. So there should be a rehabilitation and mitigation plan in place, and that should be properly implemented. This is controlled by the authority. Now they become stringent. For example, nowadays the beer industries are using their wastewater, treated wastewater for irrigation in the for the community. So that is one advantage. Also, the leather industries and others are forced to do that. Currently, the implementation in the flooring industry is already started. You know, sometimes the politicians compromise because they are generating foreign currency from the flooring industry, and they are a bit lenient, but they have started already implementing that. So it is stringent, and the social responsibility is getting more awareness to the local government as well as the community, as Burru said. Some are outlaws, you know. For the ethnic group, they are damaging the industry, and others, they are outlaws due to their pure political reasons. But in a true sense, currently it is improving. The CSR is improving in our country. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, thank you. I think those are very good diverse opinions from Biru, Alemayu, and Bekal with regard to looking at social responsibility from an Ethiopian perspective. Good. I think quickly, maybe just as somebody wants to say something? Yeah, good. So I think I've benefited from the observations of the three, Biru, Alemayu, and Beka, with regard to looking at corporate social responsibility from the Ethiopian perspective. I think the last activity, I just want us to go quickly. We may not discuss this, but maybe after we look at them, then maybe you can identify with them. And as I said, the details of these PowerPoints are in the study pack that I sent. So maybe a lot of these can then be looked at from the study pack. For example, number one, it says the ethics of governance requires that directors in their stewardship role must be faithful to 4 basic ethical values of good corporate governance. That is responsibility, accountability, fairness, and transparency. Using appropriate examples, explain the 4 ethical values. So what is required of you is maybe a good way of handling this is to look at a certain sector or an industry or an organization and try to see how responsibility, accountability, and transparency can be used as a basis for good corporate governance, you know? So you basically then have to explain how the management and the board need to be responsible, to be accountable, to be fair and transparent as a way of ensuring there's good corporate governance. Number 2 says, As stewards of an organization, directors are required to perform their stewardship role, exercising 5 moral duties. Discuss using relevant examples the 5 moral duties. Remember, I took you through those 5 duties. Let me just go back to them. Uh, uh, yes. So the 5 moral duties that then you have to discuss here are conscious, care, competence, commitment, and courage. So
Yeah.
you can go back in my lecture notes. I've also in the study guides. Those are very detailed. Identify and discuss the evolution and origins of SRI. SRI is socially responsible investment. And again, you can discuss this from Becal's perspective, where you're saying you're looking at, corporate social responsibility is looked at as an investment. And basically, you're saying, where are you going to put your investment as an organization so that this investment is what you think is going to benefit your stakeholders. So the key thing has to do with an investment that is benefiting your stakeholder, right? So again, you remember how we looked at it. And he said, it's important that you look at where are you putting your investment, you know? Are you going to put it where you are just looking for your quick financial gains, but you're not looking at how you're benefiting society? That's critical. Define and explain the meaning of ethical behavior using appropriate illustrations, you know? You can look at this from your understanding of ethics, you know, and ethics has got to do with a way of behavior that is acceptable, that is honest, you know. And so you look at that and try to define and explain the meaning. Basically, you can't get such a question in the exams, but it just helps you to go back to understand what ethical behavior is all about. Using practical illustration, discuss the status of SRI in Ethiopia. And I think we have discussed a bit of this from what we heard from Alemayu and what we heard from Bekal and what we heard from Biru. Why might institutions be involved in SRI? What is the impact of SRI on shareholder value? Uh, uh, Again, this goes to the arguments for corporate social responsibility. And remember, we said you're building up the reputation of the company, you're building up the brand of the company. And when you do that, it means you're attracting maybe better employees. And as a result of that, you are even increasing your market share. And that would basically then mean that the company ending up doing better, making more profit, and more dividends for your shareholders. So it's a plus for the shareholders. Why are more companies becoming interested in their social and environmental policies? And again, from the discussions of Alemayu, you have heard about institutions setting up bodies like the government to ensure that organizations are accountable in terms of environmental and social impact so that you are responsible to your environment, you know? And I think it can be looked at from that perspective. In what ways might institutional investor decide to on which companies to invest in when considering their social responsibility policies? Again, this is important. This has to go with what really is their mission and their vision, you know. When they're trying to invest in organizations, you're looking at, and that's why I said all organizations should have this documented and to have these as policies. You know, it's not something that you're just going to do haphazardly. It has got to be planned so that sometimes investors would want to invest, let's say, in an organization that is investing in, let's say, the disabled, you know, or an organization that has policies that puts money back to, let's say, on planting trees, you know, or on saving, let's say, wild animals. It happens like that. So that has to be very clear. Do you think investors should sacrifice their social responsibility returns if necessary in order to have a portfolio that is comprised of socially responsible investment. What we are saying here is that, there was the argument against CSR, if you remember, that was saying that it's a cost and organizations should do away with it because it's a cost. And some were saying that that should be the work of the government and NGOs and not for organizations. So again, basically, you need to look at it, pick a stand and stick to that stand and maybe justify your reasons why you think organizations need not to sacrifice their social responsibilities. Companies are about making money, not about social responsibility. Critically discuss this statement. I gave you earlier and I said some of you who have background in economics and maybe finance, you must have heard of what normally they call the triple bottom line benefits, TBL, triple bottom line benefits. And that is companies looking at financial benefits. That's what they call the triple bottom line benefits, TBL, financial, environmental, and social benefits. You must look at all those in totality. So you cannot only focus on financial benefits at the expense of social and environmental. That's wrong and discouraged. And yes, companies are about making money, but you also need to be socially responsible and environmentally responsible. So you can take a stand and defend it based on that. The last one, I think on this. The other is a case study which you can look at later. Is case study number 8. CSR is the first casualty in an like now many companies are facing problems. I don't know how it is in your country, but many organizations, because of COVID-19, are having financial issues. And so you see, when you're having financial issues, there's the cut down on your expenditure. Maybe lay off people, maybe send people home on unpaid leave, maybe salary cuts, But they're saying CSR is one department that will face a problem because this is where the company look at first. So they say CSR is the first casualty in an economic downturn as companies will cut back on this area. Critically discuss this statement in the light of global financial crisis and the potential implications for the CRI on institutional investors. I don't know. You can look at this later because of time, but just try to figure out what would be the repercussion, the challenge. Of course, yes, companies are facing problems. Times the CRS, corporate social, I think it's CSR, I think I wrote it. This is CSR, not CRS. I'll change this. This should be C, corporate social responsibility. Sorry. Yes, it should be like that. So this is what faces the problem. Maybe just look at it later at your own time to try to, what are the implications if you are, amongst other things. Of course, this is one area that you bring down your expense on when the company is having financial crisis. So maybe what you're asking is, what's the implication for that? Maybe those are issues you can look at later. Maybe if you think we can discuss them before the next class, then we'll discuss them. And also then just try to look again at case 6, is also a Brazilian company, and we'll try to find out what are the issues with regard to corporate social responsibility. I think that brings me to the end of my lecture tonight, and that was very good. I think what we've looked at generally is the issue of corporate social responsibility, corporate social investment, and try to look at it from an Ethiopian perspective and try to see for companies to be socially responsible. At the end of it, we looked at the argument for CSR and the arguments against CSR and some of the principles that involve good corporate governance. I think that was good enough. Unless somebody has a question, we have our next lecture on Friday, same time. Maybe you can just have a look at that case study. We may discuss it, and the questions I've looked at in the three. If there is one that you'd think we look at before the class begins, maybe you will highlight it.
Doctor, I don't think so. Doctor, Friday is Ethiopian New Year. It is a holiday in Ethiopia.
Oh, it's a holiday.
Yeah.
Ethiopian New Year. It's called what? Which?
Ethiopian New Year.
Holiday.
Yeah.
So your new year, your new year begins on
Friday.
1
September 11.
Friday is your 2020 or 2020?
Friday is our New Year.
September 11.
2013.
2011.
13.
2013. Good. Congratulations. So
don't relate with September 11 United States.
It must be
It's
a big holiday. It's a big holiday.
It's very, very big.
Okay. So we may have to postpone the Friday classes, and then
we will meet.
So we can't have it on Saturday, or we just have it on Monday.
Monday.
Okay, Monday is
Monday.
Okay. But at least we are moving on well. So enjoy your new year, and all the best. All the best.
Thank you.
ለመማር ወደ ትምህርት ተቋም መሄድ ግድ አይደለም።
ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
ራሳችሁን ከኮሮና ቫይረስ ወረርሽኝ እየጠበቃችሁ በቤታችሁ ወይም በተመቻችሁ ቦታ
በኢንተርኔት አማካኝነት በኦንላይን ትምህርታችሁን መከታተል ይቻላል።
ካናዳ ከሚገኘው ኢንተርናሽናል ኤር ትራንስፖርት አሶሲዬሽን አያታና
ከእንግሊዙ ኢንስቲትዩት ኦፍ ኮመርሻል ማኔጅመንት ICM ጋር በመተባበር የሚሰጡ ትምህርቶችን ተከታትላችሁ በ6 ወር ጊዜ በዓለም አቀፍ ደረጃ ተቀባይነት ያለውን የስልጠና ማስረጃ ባለቤት መሆን ይቻላል።
ከኢትዮጵያ ሲቪል አቪዬሽን ባለስልጣን ሙሉ እና ባገኘንባቸው የፍላይት ኦፕሬሽን እና የሆስተስ ስልጠናም በመዝገባ ላይ ነን።
ጥያቄና መልስ፣ የክፍል ስራዎች ብሎም ፈተና መፈተን ክፍል ውስጥ እንዳላችሁ አይነት
ልምድ ባላቸው መምህራን እየተማራችሁ
በኦንላይን ባላችሁበት ቦታ
አድራሻ ከ22 ማዞሪያ ወደ ሾላ ገበያ በሚወስደው መንገድ 150 ሜትር ገባ ብሎ ናሽናል አቪዬሽን ኮሌጅ
የናሽናል ኤርዌይስ እህት ኩባንያ
ህልሞን እውን ያደርጋል።